Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Silver Years. My name is DK, and I'm very happy to be here. I humbly thank you for joining me. Today, I'd like to talk about lifestyles and some of the options we have for living in our world these days, including what some would call alternative or even off grid lifestyles. Although it's become pretty obvious in the last decade or so that what society once considered alternative throughout much of my lifetime is perhaps not so alternative anymore. And I'm talking throughout the latter half of the last century, the late 1900s. There are, of course, a myriad of reasons for this, but I found the unsupportable and unsustainable costs to live in our realm to be a major factor. And this has served as a catalyst for many in making the choice to explore alternative living solutions that are not confined by city limits and traditional expectations that were firmly established as I was growing up, expectations that just don't work in today's reality. Now, I can sit here for an hour and lament about all of the components and greed factors that have contributed to the average working American in this country being price beaten out of their homes and traditional lifestyles, and how the middle class, many of these Americans were raised to believe they were a solid part of, is being deleted. I could, but that's not what I want to focus on here today. Because honestly, if you're one of those being deleted, you know who you are and you know how you're being deleted. And only you can create the alternative solutions necessary for you to turn your lemons into lemonade. Now, in my humble opinion, when it comes to exploring any lifestyle, the first place to begin with is housing. You got to live somewhere. Where do you live? Raise your family. Where can you sleep at night that provides warmth, safety, and security? Good housing is paramount for good health and for survival. It's pretty obvious to anyone who's been disenfranchised from a traditional lifestyle in an urban environment due to financial hardship that options become extremely limited when what you're able to financially generate, in other words, what money you're able to earn basically, cannot keep up with the inflationary cost of what it takes to maintain good housing, let alone a middle class living standard that offers some semblance of autonomy or independence. It's almost as if the great divide in financial realities before us now is forcing people into two separate directions, two opposite paths when it comes to finding housing solutions. For some, the one path might take them deeper into the system, into the confines of the city through low income housing projects, or even into one of the many brutalistic prison block apartment buildings built for the planned 15-minute smart city environments that are structured to restrict movement and reduce the need for owning your own car, or much else for that matter. What you don't spend on a car, you can spend in rent, I guess. How are the globalists promoting this these days? You will have nothing and enjoy it. These government structured urban settings are within city limits and controls and monitored through 5G and 6G frequency bands and camera surveillance. For some, this path, this housing solution will provide the warmth, safety, and security they seek. But for those who have been financially alienated through difficult times and bad credit scores, akin to the social credit scores they have in communist China, The option to be approved for any type of lease or rental agreement within the corporate structures, owning and controlling a lot of the urban housing available for rent these days, including those brutalistic stack 'em and pack 'em prison block apartments, is nigh impossible, especially if you've been foreclosed upon or evicted, regardless of what hardship got you there. And I won't even go into the cost commitment required by these corporate management companies to move into a newly rented housing unit, which for many already suffering or compromised financially is another barrier to entry. Yeah, like first and last month's rent, pet deposit, cleaning deposit, or whatever else. Where do these families who are disenfranchised or deleted from the matrix system go when the matrix has used their social credit scores against them, like in China? Many, it seems, are opting for an alternative path, a path that takes them outside of the matrix because the system is forcing them through necessity to break away. And clearly, this isn't without its judgments and challenges. But I simply have to say that in the end, this is how new realities are created, new systems. This is how they're created. It typically begins with those trailblazers who are forced to break away from the traditional structure in order to survive. And in so doing, they create a bridge for those who come behind them. Sounds like some old story we were told about the pilgrims and why they came to America in the first place. Not that I believe that story or his story, but it's a story most of us are familiar with. What I find interesting in all this is the more people that break away, the more possibilities there are for those who are forced to follow them as the matrix system continues to collapse under its own unsustainable weight. Makes me think of the creation of a pearl. A pearl is essentially a healed wound formed by a mollusk in response to an irritant, such as a grain of sand. It begins as a wound and transforms into a thing of natural beauty and strength. It becomes a treasure, even if it was highly inconvenienced in the making. Now, the alternative path is the path that leads us back to nature, away from the confines of the matrix system and into nature, where sustainability can be created when we work in harmony with it instead of against it. The matrix system has had us working against the harmony of nature under the guise of progress for more than a century. And like the matrix system itself, this general approach is showing itself to be unsustainable. For some, going alternative means having no home at all. They call that being unhoused, I think. And yes, I fully understand that there's an unsavory underbelly to this, and it's an extremely harsh lifestyle to maintain. The Matrix doesn't support or approve of this approach at any level and takes measures to permanently remove those who are trapped within its urban areas. These individuals become easy targets. While most who experience it likely didn't choose it, there are some who can't live any other way with the open sky above them. They need that. I mention it because it is a part of the alternative path. And yes, our government bureaucrats make a big show of attempting to assist and fund solutions for the unhoused problem, as they call it. But it's just that, all a big show and a money grab for the corporate grifters and those skimming off the top. No solution for housing the unhoused will be forthcoming from any government or politician in this country anytime soon, even though we all know that good solutions do exist and are possible. Another alternative path involves living in a car. Those who live in their car do not consider themselves unhoused overall. The challenge is finding safe places to park and sleep within the urban setting. But these individuals have mobility and options as long as their car is operational. I feel there are more people living in their cars than we can count these days, and many are working full time jobs, earning a paycheck, but we just don't hear about it. And then there's the van life. I had a niece who traveled with her partner all over the United States for more than 2 years, living out of a Sprinter van they fixed up and made a home out of. More people are doing this by the day, taking what little resources they have and investing in the van life. There is safety in numbers, however, and going it alone might require caution and certain safety measures for protection. But this alternative allows mobility and the ability to park anywhere, even in a campground or any other open area or natural setting. Not for everyone, but an option that seems to be growing. A big trend I'm seeing now is RV living, and it's growing big time. What I've learned about RV living is that no RV park is legally allowed to let you permanently park there for more than 6 months. Why is staying longer than 6 months illegal? What bureaucrat decided that? Those who live in an RV park long term have to literally pack up and leave for 1 week every 6 months to comply with this law. That, to me, is a retarded use of legislation meant to limit those who choose this alternative approach to housing. Why can't you live where you want to live as long as you want to live there, so long as you and the RV park are in agreement? Of course, with an RV, you don't necessarily have to stay in an RV park at all. You can rotate and live off grid like the van life as an option as well. Wherever you go, your home base is with you. Staying overnight in a Walmart parking lot was once an option for those passing through town in their RVs or camper vans, but apparently Walmart's corporate policy still permits overnight RV parking at individual stores when approved by the store manager. But many locations prohibit it due to local laws and past issues. Now, the biggest trend I'm seeing now, especially with those living in the silver years demographic, is off grid living, a return to peace and quiet and nature. Yes, it's typically devoid of many of the modern conveniences we think we can't live without. But for those choosing this alternative approach, it brings affordability and peace of mind in a natural setting. Camping can be part of this. RV housing can also be part of this as well. But those opting to go off grid usually liquidate much of what they've acquired throughout their lives and invest it in unrestricted land or an off grid cabin where they can live a simpler life. There are, of course, many issues to consider, especially when there is no access to an existing municipal infrastructure to tap into, like water, sewer, or septic, electricity, even the internet, if that's desired. Accessibility through traversable roads and heating in the winter, depending on location, is also important to consider too. Not to mention the ability to grow some of your own food where possible. Some states in this country have taken egregious legal steps to discourage and minimize the off grid approach, primarily because it removes you from the system. You become independent from the system and no longer dependent upon it for survival. The matrix system may want to delete you from financial viability, but that doesn't mean it wants you to leave the system altogether, because you sustain it with your energetic participation. This is important to recognize. These states cannot outlaw living off grid entirely, but they can make obtaining the essentials of life, such as water, difficult. This is being done in some places by making it illegal to catch and store rainwater, for example. And some states have, states like Oregon and Colorado, to name a couple. Some areas may block you from drilling a well on your own land. Or they can try to do what I recently heard was attempted, I think it was Tennessee, where one woman put an SOS call out on social media because the government officials in her area had sent her a notice telling her that they intended to put a meter on her own well on her own land. They intended to charge her for and regulate her water usage from the well she drilled and maintains. There is power in numbers, and she needed the help from others to support her in pushing back against the totalitarian tiptoe and defend her rights to use the water that came from her own well without restriction. This issue impacts everyone, whether you have a well or not, because we all need water to live, and we all should have the rights to access it. The matrix system will go to great lengths to strip you of your human right to the essentials of life, and I include housing in this. You have to pay to live on the planet you were born on. This means we're all born into debt. And this inhumane approach is why the matrix as we know it is unsustainable. Water, also an essential for life on this planet, is being restricted to humans in need in favor of the big corporations that defile, pollute, and steal it. Just ask the Cheyenne, Wyoming water officials who recently discovered that Mark Zuckerberg's company, Meta, the elite billionaire globalist who controls Facebook and Instagram, amongst other mega corporations, where it's been discovered that Meta has been dumping drug resistant bacteria contaminated water into the water systems of Cheyenne, where many have gotten very sick. People are getting very sick and cannot be treated. And I can only ask, is Meta still being allowed to dump this contaminated water into the Cheyenne water system after all this? And why is a data center that is supposedly using water solely to cool the pipes, as we're told, manufacturing a drug resistant bacteria as wastewater in the first place? The lies are plentiful, and there is much we are not being told. And this is just the story on one data center. If any of us thinks for even 1 minute that there isn't a much bigger environmental problem here with the rapid data center expansion we're seeing across this country, then we are in line for the rudest of collective awakenings. Or how about we ask the people of Mexico, where we've all heard of Montezuma's revenge, right? Something you get when you drink Mexico's contaminated water, and that includes the ice cubes made from it or consume anything washed in it, even showering in it. Do you know why this is an issue? Just ask the Coca-Cola company, who took over control of the largest pure water aquifer in the country for use in making its Coke products, leaving the population left with contaminated groundwater for consumption. The people of Mexico have been convinced over many years of programming to drink Coke instead of water. The Coke they're drinking is made from the pure water that should be coming out of their own taps. What we're seeing now are the governments in this country opening up our public lands for developers, oil drills and mines and invasive tech companies to exploit, while they siphon off all of the local water supplies and available electricity in the process, and pollute our natural resources without compunction or culpability. This is our home. These public lands belong to the public, and they're being sold to the highest bidder as we get evicted from our lives and our homes. Yet we're not permitted to access these public lands without permits or permission by the authority figures that work for us, are paid for by us. They are our employees. What is wrong with this picture? And more importantly, are we going to allow it to continue? Now, let me just say, as a reminder, like most of the things I discuss on my channel, this topic is extremely multi layered and multifaceted, which means that it's not just one thing that makes it all so. It's many layers of things over time that has gotten us to where we are today. What I'm trying to shed light on here are simply some of the significant factors that I've observed when it comes to those who are compelled, for whatever reason, to create a different lifestyle outside of the matrix construct. A realistic and affordable lifestyle rooted in the sustainability of nature. All said, in the end, I feel it's our responsibility to get educated, to learn as much as we can about how we can work together to create and build new communities of like minded people that operate outside of the matrix system so as to create a new collective reality based on what we want to experience as a society and not on fear and control and oppression. This part of creation is on us, and each and every one of us has a part to play in this. Coming together to create a new reality is key. So, before I go, I'd like to leave you with a question, as I like to do. If you were to choose to live an alternative lifestyle, what would it look like? And for those who are already living it, feel free to share your experience. Please leave your comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. So until next time, be well, choose love, and thank you. Thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.